it's important. And how many does the network has? You know, and he got all the lady from the handle social media and everything for us. And I said, well, I have 1,135 as of yesterday, 1,142 as of today. But it was, it was a big deal. So, I'm kind of wondering if we are now as reporters, as journalists, as media personalities, if that is so important. My question to you guys, and Hector, let me start with you. Are you seeing that your readers or viewers, are they also engaging you guys through social media? And how important and how big is that?
Well, actually, to listen to our bosses is very important.
Exactly. They asked me for 1 million yesterday.
Well, yeah, I'm never going to get 1 million. I actually took Twitter's, I didn't take it very seriously.
Yeah.
So when I got my Twitter handle, I picked like a really goofy name. And that really didn't even identify me as an LA Times reporter. And actually, it was only 2 weeks ago, someone told me, you really ought to change your name. It's kind of goofy. So I did. Yeah, I think people are engaging us more via Twitter. I think it increases our exposure, exposure of our stories and of our colleagues' stories and of the LA Times stories. There were still a couple of people at the paper who didn't even have accounts, and I think they were basically told they had to. So, we have to, especially in the newspaper business, you have to do more to sort of engage your consumers. We don't have the advantage of generally being able to put something up immediately, via video. So we have to kind of make up for that in other ways. And I think little by little we're starting to understand that. And I think we were probably a little slow, including just sort of like embracing the online presence. But I think more and more we're getting clued into how important that is.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this, and Edwin, I would like to hear your take on this. It seems like breaking news now, we go to Twitter and everything is there. I mean, we have even reported we have reported in the past breaking news because somebody tweeted something that is going on. How do we make sure that we are being factual and that we are telling the true story based on the fact that we just saw something on Twitter? How do you guys handle that? How does Associated Press handle that? Is there a protocol or not really?
It's not a secret that the AP is focusing on getting the story right, more so than in getting it fast. We see that as our part of our brand. Now that other media outlets are not quite getting it right all the time, we want to be known as the media outlet that gets it right all the time. I mean, we try. So that's what we're aiming at, and we get reminded all the time that that's our goal, and that's what we do. And if we're not 100% right, if we're 99% right, we don't file the story. We hold on to that, and we try to double check until we're completely right.
Yeah. Yurina, I remember having a conversation with Monica Lozano a while back about how La Opinión was, making a transition, going from, a very conventional print type of newspaper into the whole, social media and, sphere. How is that experience with you guys? How is it going there?
I think we're still trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
They got somebody from El Universal de Mexico to come up. First he was in LA, then they decided as a company to move him to New York. And he was going to be the person in charge of the Twitter. So that was all he was going to do for all the papers in Namibia. No surprise, that didn't work. I mean, somebody in New York is going to tweet what exactly that it's happening in LA. So that was a hit and miss. Then they hired somebody here locally, and somehow that person just didn't quite do it the way they wanted to. So right now they hired another one. I think all of you know Veronica Villalfane.
Yeah.
Everybody knows her. So she's been at La Opinion for about 2 weeks. So let's see. We don't know. We don't know how things are gonna go with that. They're still figuring things out. What we do now, and that's like what like not the rule, but what we've been told to do, is we all tweet with our handle, right?
Yeah.
And then if we write at La Opinión LA, then they can retweet it.
Yeah.
So that's the policy as of now.
Yeah. And it was very smart bringing Veronica on board, because Veronica, I think, is one of the very, very first Latinas covering Latinos or Latina media that had a blog and that was in the forefront of everything that has been going on. I think that Spanish media in general, we kind of been behind on that regard, and Veronica was in the forefront of creating her own blog and that kind of thing, which is very, very popular. Media moves. So what about sports, Jason? Is it a completely different approach?
Yeah, it is a different approach, and it is about followers, because with sports, I think people, and I think it goes with anything too, especially even entertainment, we've gone into this era now where people like to follow personalities. Their favorite reporter, either because she's really pretty, or I think he's really hot, or because he sounds really good. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, and you see a lot of that, and it comes down to followers. But also, it's funny now, because if I get a press release, if the Dodgers send something out that says, so-and-so just went on the DL list and they're injured, and within seconds, I mean, you got to turn it around and you want to tweet that out, and it's out there immediately. Yeah. So in sports especially, there's this immediacy to turning things around because of reports of injuries that are happening, trades that might have happened, and you want to be the first one to push that one out. But what we saw, and especially when we were at Lakers Nation, we went from, when I was there at Lakers Nation, we went from starting out 30,000 followers or so in 2010 to 600 and something thousand followers. But I mean, there was really no secret. I mean, it's the Lakers, and the Lakers just have a huge following. But we noticed that some reporters had more followers than others. And sometimes, to be honest with you, it didn't have to do with content or talent. It may have just been that they resonated well on camera. But I think the trick is, and one thing I wanted to add also, as we talk about, I think it depends on the media. I think the trick with like LA Times or even La Opinión or what have you, what sometimes they struggle is if you take who is reading La Opinión, and if the La Opinión readers are they on Twitter all the time? And are they on Facebook all the time? Are 18 to 35-year-olds reading La Opinión, right? So there's a disparity there. I think that sometimes not just companies and businesses, but just media organizations have a conflict, and they think that every 45 and 50-year-old and 60-year-old and 70-year-old is following Twitter and Facebook the same as a 21-year-old or a 30-year-old, millennial, so to speak. So I think it's the audience where it makes it very, very tricky. A good example is, and I know someone's here from, I think, KPCC, but I think the local KPCC and KCRWs do a really, really good job of that, because they're covering local content. And I think on social media, people really want to follow what's happening in my neighborhood next door and who's talking about it.
Yep, absolutely. Humberto, I see your shows. I'm familiar with your shows, and you will think that that's the perfect demo, right? To be very active on social media. Is that your guys' experience?
Well, I'll put it this way to how important social media is for us, and we've discovered this really this past year. We're an independent show, we're a syndicated show, we don't have a big budget. Our marketing budget is not very large, so social media is really the main way that we reach our viewers, and we get to know our viewers. Because when they like American Latino TV or they like Latin Nation, we're actually seeing who our demographic is, and we can prove it. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the Nielsen ratings, but you have to pay to get the Nielsen ratings across. We can only get the ones in LA. That's part of our marketing budget. But we notice where we're strong in other parts of the country through our Facebook. I mean, you see the likes, you see where they're from. One thing that we've noticed is that we can actually get more viewers watching the show if we're putting stuff on our social media that's exclusive to our social media. So maybe it's behind the scenes photos of the Dodgers, or behind the scenes photos of some movie that we are covering. And then when people are logging on and seeing something viral from Latin Nation, American Latino TV, that's usually the best advertisement that we can use, because we don't have a lot of billboards and stuff like that. So social media has now become more than half of the manpower and time that we put into our marketing in general.
Yeah. When I came in, Adolfo, where's Adolfo? Adolfo, raise your hand. Where are you? Adolfo asked me a very good question as I was coming in, and he asked me something along the lines of how the coverage that we give, that we have of our, our Latino community, if that coverage has changed or if it's still the same, right? And what I was telling him is that I think it has changed, at least from my experience in the company that I work for now and who I represent. Mundo Fox, or Fox, decided to launch this network, which is their new Spanish division, which is Mundo Fox, full broadcast network instead of cable. And the approach was, at the very beginning, how are we going to be different from Univision? How are we going to be different from Telemundo and from the other Spanish networks out there? And one of the things that we decided to do, and is part of the whole initiative, is to be able to present stories about our community and the kind of coverage that we're going to have now and that we do, that are more of empowering stories. Not your typical story about how the Latino community is oppressed, they cannot get ahead in life, they're always struggling, which obviously is part of our daily lives, but we also have a very successful Hispanic community that are doing very well in this country. And that is kind of the approach that we have taken as far as what we're going to do. Something else that we're also doing, and if you guys ever get a chance to watch the network newscast at 5:30, you're going to see a lot more English sound bites. When in the other networks, and I spent 14 years working at Univision, you will hear a little bit of the sound bite in English, bring down the audio, and then do the translation, right? Well, we don't do that. We let the English sound bite run in English, and we put the subtitles in Spanish. The thinking behind it is that a big percentage of our Hispanic community also speak English. They are bilingual. They have the option of watching, our newscasts or ABCs or NBCs, Diane Sawyer, Brian Williams, or any of those shows, but they decide to watch us because they know that they're going to get a more of